Hi, my name is Kelly. The new text-to-image AI art generators have me so fascinated that I wanted to experiment and see how well they could translate our favorite books into imagery. It gets one time to shine and one time only. The first image it creates is what we see, just as we do when we read the book. Today's visual craziness comes via a request from viewer Kevin T. He would like to see the Dragonlance fantasy world come to life. Now, I wasn't familiar with this series, so I went and did a little bit of prep work, and turns out there are like 160 different novels in this series since its creation in 1984, so I asked Kevin to get a little bit more specific, but he didn't respond back, so I just picked one at random. The book I selected is a collection of short stories called The Dragons of Krynn. The Dragons of Krynn was edited by Margaret Weiss and Tracy Hickman, and it takes us on a journey of adventure, friendship, and heroism. The story is set in a land where dragons are not just myths, but powerful beings with their own agendas and alliances. Three young heroes, Tanis, Lorana, and Sturm, find themselves caught up in a conflict that threatens the balance of power among the dragons and their mortal followers. As they travel through Krynn and face various challenges, they discover their own strengths and weaknesses, and learn the true meaning of loyalty and sacrifice. Along the way, they encounter dragons of different colors and personalities, each with their own motivations and secrets. The AI algorithms have analyzed certain sections of text from the book and generated unique visual representations of some of its key themes and moments that I have selected. Through these visuals, I hope to give you a new perspective on this story and inspire your imaginations. So, sit back, relax, and watch as AI discovers the Dragons of Krynn and takes you on its weird and wacky visual journey. The Draconians. Spawned from dragons, Draconians are cold-blooded and can adjust their body temperature to suit the climate. This spring had been unusually hot, however, and beneath the trees, hot was very hot. Some Draconians could not adjust completely. You could always tell a Draconian who was exhausted or overheated. He grinned without knowing it. As the scales on his back spread to allow the air to circulate, the skin of his face pulled taut, his mouth opened to allow greater cooling. The Blood Sky. Sundown that night was one of the most eerie and beautiful sights. At the horizon, the sky turned the color of blood. All of the Draconians stopped their back-breaking work and reveled in the sight. It was an omen of the battle to come. The Silver Dragon. The dragon now shone bright silver. It swept forward. Its outstretched hind talons raked across a bridge. The damage the dragon did was light, but it carried off 2 men in its claws. The Village. It was a very small but ordinary village, the kind city dwellers often think of as idyllic, offering a simple, more peaceful way of life. At the town's center was just a few stores. If the villagers' needs could not be satisfied by these local merchants, then a long wait for delivered goods or an even longer journey to some distant location were their only other alternatives. But this was rarely necessary. The town was self-sufficient and, in fact, had little or no contact with the outside world. All very quaint. The Man. His manner and appearance were terrifying. His eyes were glowing red slits. His face was exceedingly wrinkled, with none of the lines characteristic of one who has any occasion to smile. He was the kind of man impossible to imagine having ever been a kid. It was rumored, in fact, that he was born old, complete with a beard. You never really knew where you stood with the man. The Pile of Treasure. Everyone marveled at the size of the pile of treasure as it grew on the village green. The small mountain of opulence was a thing of pride, while at the same time serving to confirm the suspicions these villagers had long harbored of each other. The Face-Off. The man stood there frozen in horror as he stared into the face of a dragon, now close enough to breathe infernal death upon them all. But the dragon did not immediately attack. Transfixed by the sight of the treasure, it was hovering just above them. The Crystals. Looking around him, he could see an eerie glow radiating from the pockets of all who were present. He now knew what it was that triggered the crystals at precisely the right instant. It was the level of fear. Multicolored beams of pure energy emanated from the pockets of every person. The rays formed a huge translucent sphere that now surrounded the heinous creature just above the center of the green. The sphere. The green sphere was undulating, holding within it a wildly writhing dragon, trapped in a fire of its own creation. The man could clearly see the beast shrieking in pain, yet not a sound of any kind escaped the diabolical sphere. The slain dragon. The dragon's charred flesh began to fall from the sky, landing in a smoldering mass no more than 10 feet from the man. Sparks singed his clothes and arms. His breathing came hard and fast. It was done. The miracle had occurred, and the dragon lay dead in the center of the village green next to the pile of treasure that had survived unharmed. Rest and relaxation. The sun darted in and out of the clouds throughout the morning. The weather could go either way. It didn't matter much to the man, who stood at his back door. This day was to be one of rest and relaxation, weather be damned. If it rained, he would stay beneath his nearly leak-free roof. If not, his hammock would do nicely. The important thing for a man of his years was to get sufficient rest. The dragon's stream. The returning sun broke free of the clouds, warming the air below. From high above, the dragon could see a stream reflecting light off the rushing water. Small streams go on to become raging rivers in the course of their journeys. It would be interesting to follow this one. A sudden rush of wind swept through the trees. The lush peace of the woodland seemed unbroken and eternal. The charred, keyhole-shaped patch was barely visible from above. The dragon could hardly see the slightest sign of it. It was a very large but ordinary forest, the kind city dwellers often think of as idyllic. The beast. The monster was huge. Standing, it would have been at least as tall as the man. In the darkness, he could not make out specific details, but the creature had a tail and looked like some sort of bizarre reptile playing at being human. Most important, the thing had long, wicked talons and jaws wide enough to snap a minotaur's head off. The horse and rider. Black clouds swirled. The wind was a howling fiend that tossed leaves and broken foliage around the horse and rider. The man shielded his eyes against the stinging dust and began debating the possibility of stopping where he was and seeking shelter. The lone figure. A lone figure stands atop a cliff, overlooking a vast sea. In the distance, a dragon-shaped silhouette emerges from the mist, its scales glinting in the sunlight. The figure holds a staff adorned with a glowing crystal and wears a red robe emblazoned with the golden sun. In the distance, a sprawling city can be seen, nestled among the hills, its walls guarded by knights in shining armor. Above it all, a crescent moon hangs in the sky, casting an ethereal glow over the scene. The knight. Summoning what remained of his strength, the knight swung the battle axe over his head and brought it down. The blow caught the monster in the skull. To his astonishment, the axe went clean through the skull into the body. Literally cleaved in two, the dragon man collapsed. The warrior. The warrior's movements slowed. He was reminded of all those times during the war when he and the others had been forced to wade through hip-deep mud. He moved as if in a dream. The knight skeleton. A knight, or what had been a knight, was walking towards us. His armor covered bone, not flesh. His helm rattled on a blood-stained skull. He held a sword in his skeletal hand. Behind him, I saw what seemed an army of these horrors, though there were only 6 or 7. The dragon egg. Her hands glowing softly to guide her vision, she stared through the shimmering, translucent shell into the interior of the egg. Transparent, blue-veined wings shrouded a reptilian face with 2 great black eyes. Tiny arms slowly moved in the milky fluid inside, and one claw reached suddenly toward her, a fervent grasp that startled her. Again, the images are not a perfect rendering of everything mentioned in the prompts. I mean, there are a couple that are nothing that the prompt asked for, as if the AI had a kind of a squirrel moment and just decided to do whatever it wanted within the theme. But even with these non-perfect representations, color me impressed. Just don't use pink. Thanks again to Kevin T for the wonderful suggestion. My wife really loved this one, and she is a huge fan of dragons. If you have a story that you'd like to see AI interpret next, leave me a comment below and let me know. Remember to like, comment, and subscribe so you don't miss the next weird, wild, and wacky book interpretation, and to watch as AI gets better and better over time. Also, make sure you check out the videos of the books that have already been interpreted on my channel if you haven't. There's some really cool imagery going on. But until next time, take care.